is a leadership that will enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own.
Not your average nigga, I'm a god out the hood. They can't downplay me, I came up, I'm elevated. I ain't gotta say too much for them to know I'm coming for what's mine. You know they see me in my presence, say they see how I'm coming. Young, but you not just gonna finesse me like you did my peoples. Them back when you said they was emancipated. This ain't that. Your head too big, you feeling yourself. The game wasn't fair, you had the advantage, we wasn't educated. I don't look at you people the same. Nah. Your worst nightmare, my skin tone about them chains. Yeah. Not no circus lion, son, I can't be tamed. You gon' have to kill me, pussy, Toby ain't my name. Y'all still want us think our history started when we were slaves? What? Come on now, talk about them pyramids we made. I was chosen by that man, you know y'all just been running game. The nerve of you acting like...
Peace, family, and welcome back to another powerful episode of Shifting the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Brother King Cam, and this is where we speak truth to power, elevate the people, and challenge the narrative. So we have a fire guest that's going to be joining us momentarily on this broadcast tonight. But before we get into that, I need to say to all of the loyal and faithful supporters of the broadcast, thank you for tuning in. As always, I need you to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. If you follow us on YouTube, we're building our family over there, so I need you to make sure that you subscribe and make sure that you share all of the links out that we have every time we post on YouTube. My Facebook family, I need the Facebook family to make sure that you share and like. We want to make sure we get as many people engaged in this broadcast as possible. And then also shout out to the Instagram family who will be checking this out a little bit later on, and then also to the Twitter family as well. So make sure that you are tuning in. So in the process of doing that, I'm also going to be sharing the link out as well so that we can make sure that we get as many people in, as well as those in the comments section. I need you to make sure that you let me know what city and state that you tune into. What city and state are you tuning in from, family? Because that's going to be good for us to know. And I know we haven't been live for about a month or so now. We haven't actually went live. We've been still putting out the content, as you know, if you're following us on YouTube. That's why you got to subscribe on YouTube. We just haven't had any live broadcasts in a while. So it's good to be back on live, good to be tuned in with the family virtually. And like I said, let me know what city and state that you're going to be tuning in from as we get this broadcast kicked off. But as far as my guest is concerned, I have a very, very esteemed sister who's going to be joining us. She is a psychologist. And I want to read her bio very quickly before we bring her on and then get into this discussion. Dr. Monique Muhammad, proprietor of Swift Solutions Consulting Services, LLC, is a psychologist, a New Jersey licensed professional counselor, and a New York licensed mental health counselor. She has over 30 years of clinical experience in the field of mental health and operates a private practice in Rahway, New Jersey, where she specializes in couples therapy and trauma. In addition to her clinical work, Dr. Muhammad also offers keynote talks, curriculum design, personal development workshops, and professional training. She consults with religious, community-based, and nonprofit organizations, public and private schools, as well as with private groups. Dr. Muhammad is a subject matter expert on issues that form at the intersection of trauma and race. She consults with organizations that want to become trauma-informed and racially bias-resistant. Dr. Muhammad's extensive volunteer work typically benefits the black community specifically, and oppressed and underserved populations in general. Her volunteer activity often involves grassroots and civic organizing, personal and community empowerment building, and addressing issues of racial inequality and racial trauma. Dr. Muhammad actively serves on several boards, including the Board of Advisors for Volunteers of America, the Newark Community Collaborative Board, the Board of Advisors for the Newark Community Street Team, and the Union County Juvenile Conference Committee under the Family Division of the Superior Court. Dr. Muhammad is an active member of the Association of Black Psychologists, where she served her local chapter for 2 terms as recording secretary, followed by 2 terms as chapter president. She served the National Board of Black Psychologists, or ABPSI, as Eastern Regional Representative for 1 term and currently sits as president of the Association of Black Psychologists. Dr. Muhammad has a special interest in spiritual coaching and holistic health. Family, help me bring on to our program now Sister Dr. Monique Muhammad. All praises due to Allah.
Praise be to Allah.
Yes,
Brother
ma'am.
King Cam, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Man, thank you for taking so much time out of your busy schedule to sit down and have a conversation with us today, because I think it's going to be very beneficial and very informative.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So I want to get right into it. Reading your bio, all of the root of the issues that are in our community stem from our mindset and the
Mm,
work that you've done in the community, 30 plus years of clinical work, as well as your work with grassroots organizations, religious organizations, specializing with relationships and trauma. All of those different things affect our community and ultimately, and really affect our behavior that ultimately affects our community, right? So,
absolutely.
being a mental health advocate and a black psychologist, what are some of the things that you've seen in your work as it pertains to our people?
Hmm. So, well, there's a lot that I've seen in our work. We are hurting, right? We're hurting. We experience persistent trauma. Our trauma occurs on multiple levels. And as a consequence of the individual experiences that we have that have been traumatic, we are also traumatizing and injuring and harming each other,
Mm,
right? So there's this layering and this really convoluted um, dynamic that we have in our community of harm, and it's ongoing, it's cyclical, and it reproduces itself. And so I have devoted a lot of my professional efforts toward addressing, exposing, educating us about that trauma and that harm.
mm.
So, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And
Pause.
well, you have, and when I think about the crime that's in our community, I looked at some of the stats here in Atlanta, Georgia, specifically in Clayton County, where the highest number of calls that the police receive are domestic calls. And in those domestic violence calls, most of the time, the perpetrator or the victim is harmed by a person that they live with, person that they knew, person they was in a relationship with. So the crime is directly related to the relationships, and those
Mhm.
relationships and how we deal with those are directly related to the trauma.
Yes,
So,
yes.
oftentimes in our community, therapy is looked upon as being taboo, as being
Mm.
something strange or something weird. Can you talk about the benefits of therapy, as well as the minister offering to us Dianetics?
Okay. So there's a number of things that came to mind as you were talking. So I want to kind of back up a little bit,
Okay, yes, ma'am.
but I'm gonna need you to remind me of your question because there are multiple parts where thoughts that came to mind. You were talking about like the domestic violence,
Yes.
and that's one of many issues that we see rampant in our community. But what came to mind was a quote from Dr. King, and
Mm,
I don't say it exactly, but I'm just going to paraphrase it. He was talking about, that it's shameful that Black people commit the crimes that they do, but that the crimes that are committed are derivative crimes, that they
mm,
result from the larger hand of society that has committed crimes against us. And so I think that's an important reframe. It's a critical reframe because when we view ourselves, right, as criminals, as, you know, people who have created harm and so forth, there's a consequence of internalizing that way of seeing yourself.
Yes.
And as we internalize that, we we reflect it, right? In our behaviors, we become that which we believe that we are. And so that's really important to kind of elevate our understanding and our view of the whys behind what, right? What we're seeing happening in our community. That we're not seeing what we have, what we're seeing in our communities just because we're horrible people. We're not seeing what we're seeing because we're deviant people. We're seeing what we're seeing because we are people that have been oppressed. We are people that have been traumatized. We are people that have been dehumanized. We have experienced something that really no other people on the face of the earth can say that they've experienced over the course of 4+ hundred years. And so that comes with a consequence. And
Yes,
a
ma'am.
lot of the things that we are seeing in our community is the consequence of that larger hand. So I just kind of wanted to create some context around,
Context.
because I definitely don't buy into, not to say that we're not, we step on our own toes.
Yes. Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not
Yes.
ignorant to, not recognize that that's not happening. So
Yeah.
yes, that happens, but the conditions that we are in, the mindset that you talked about was created, right?
Yes.
And then we are reacting within the condition that was created for us. And this
Right.
is a natural reaction. So
Yes, ma'am.
that part, you also mentioned the taboo. And I wanted to just touch on that because this is kind of one of my soapboxes because
Okay.
we often talk about, that's our problem as Black people. We think that mental health services, therapy is taboo. And
Hmm.
there is some truth that there is a margin of stigma in our community
Okay.
when it comes to therapy. And there's a margin of stigma in just about any community when it
Right.
comes to therapy. But we don't access mental health services to the same degree, to the same extent as many other communities do. And when we see those numbers, we call that stigma. We call that a taboo that Black people have.
Hmm.
I want to put some context around that also, because I have learned, I didn't always understand this. Some years ago, a colleague did a beautiful documentary and he was talking about the institutions and the harms that these mental institutions have reaped on Black people over the
Yes.
decades, over
Yes.
centuries, right?
Yes.
And so, on the heels of enslavement, that many things happen in order to get us right back into the same condition of enslavement. And one of the things, these mental health institutions were used in that same way. So if Black people were, if you weren't working or you upset a white person, or you can just be snatched up and you could be put into a mental institution. Often, when you went into the mental institutions, when Uncle John or Auntie so and so went away,
Hmm.
we never saw them again. That's number one, right? We never saw them again. So,
Right.
what does that say to the community about those
Those
institutions,
institutions.
right?
Right.
Being dangerous for us. I also learned about what happened in those institutions. When we were institutionalized, it wasn't for care. We were institutionalized and they experimented upon us.
Experimenting on us. Yes. Yes.
Learned how to do lobotomies. They would remove pieces of our brain. They
Yes.
also, I learned that um, these mental health institutions, one of their biggest incomes, money
Wow.
generating things, wasn't the services that they provided. Many of them owned farms. And so they would bring Black people, they would put them in these institutions and made them work the farms while they were there. And that created or generated income for that institution. They also, of course, there was separation between institutions for white people and Black people. And the Black people who were institutionalized would have to serve the white patients. They became
Mm.
servants for the Black patients. Okay, so now if you
Wow.
look at all of this and you understand all of this, when our community recognizes or looks at these services, you're not looking at something that's helpful for you. You're not looking at something that is going to benefit you in some kind of way. It becomes a thing that, hey, that's not for us.
Right,
This is
right.
harmful for us. We have to stay away from that. Right. And so there, I guess I'm saying we can call that stigma, but what I want to again reframe, that's intelligence.
Right. There
There's
you go.
intelligence
There you go.
in
Yes, ma'am.
staying away from a system that is harmful for you. And we can bring that right up into today. I
Mhm.
work in the mental health system, and I know the disparities, the disadvantages, the harm that it continues to cause to
Mm,
this very day.
mm.
So
Yes, ma'am.
um, I have a healthy respect, I'm going to say, for the recognition that we don't run to mental health services in the way that people think we should run. We're
Yes, ma'am.
careful. So I think that's another reframe that I wanted to put. But you asked a question about I lost it. I need
Uh,
you to remind me.
okay, about the what about the domestic violence and the therapy. I said about the benefits of therapy in our community.
Yeah, yeah. So you were talking about the benefits of therapy in our community, and therapy can be very
Oh, and
beneficial.
I talked and I also alluded to the Dianetics as well.
Yes, yes, that's right. So again, and I'm saying what I'm saying, but I don't want to dissuade people from seeking services. But we do have to be discriminating. We do have to be careful as we're seeking the services, right? Because all of it is not for us.
And I
Um,
and this
go ahead.
just to that point too. I think it's we should be that way with everything. We should be that way with our primary care. We should be that way, with our dentist, right? Because you have to know the foundation. You have to know the historical context. You have to know the experimentation that they would do on black people. We have to know that so that you can go into these things and allow not allow your ignorance to be bliss, right? You can't go in
Absolutely.
thinking that they're going to treat you the same way they would treat a white counterpart, you know?
That's right.
And because of the history and the disparity that exists, when we go in and we have a proper knowledge and a proper understanding, then we're more vigilant, we're more aware,
Yes.
we're paying more attention to what's going on versus not. So the fact that you laid that foundation is important because now we know, okay, we got to make sure that we are on point when we go into these places. But
Mhm.
now, when we go into these places, what should we be looking for, and how do we take what they give us and then implement it in our lives?
Okay. So, and great question. The how do you go in asking questions, recognizing, real kind of, you have to do some homework beforehand and kind of know what you're looking for, what you want. One of the things that I think is important to recognize that studies literature shows that when it comes to outcomes for Black people in therapy, we get the best outcomes when we work with Black therapists.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
And, and so that is something that we need to kind of like recognizing and go with when we work with someone who looks like us, who understands us, who knows how to speak our language, we get better outcomes. So that's the how, going into it in that way. But then once we're doing that, kind of, I think one of the things, the Association of Black Psychologists, you talked about it in my intro. And one of the things that I love about this organization is the scholarship and the scholarship that comes out of this, the approaches that comes out of the scholars in this organization, that are approaches that are for Black people by Black people, right? That recognize not just the intra psychic issues that we deal with, but also the societal context that creates the intrapsychic issues, right? So
Yes.
I go to a therapist who maybe, doesn't understand. my experience as a Black person in this world, and I'm talking about my anger, and they perhaps might be inclined to identify that as my issue or my problem. Like, this is just another angry Black woman, and let me help her to not be angry. Let me help her to focus on the positive things in life. Let me help her to,
Right.
recognize that, teach her out of her anger in some way, without ever really understanding and then validating, right, that my anger is justified, right?
Mm.
And so, in doing that, when you kind of pull me away from what is rational and real for me and try to make me to conform to an idea that doesn't recognize my experience, you're doing more harm. Right. So I'm saying that to say that we have to understand that as we're going through this therapeutic process,
Mm.
that we have to, we should be have a sense of whether this person that we're working with, whether whatever racial background they might have, that they understand the context of my reality. Right. I think that
That's
is
very
critically
important.
important
That's very
because, right,
important.
more harm, more damage could be done if
Yes,
that's overlooked.
because that's almost that's basically would be, invalidating someone's lived experience, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's often what happens,
Mm.
right? In the field of mental health, Black people are pathologized at higher degrees, higher rates than white people. With the same presentation, with the same behavior, Black people will get the more severe diagnosis than white people. Black people will get certain medications versus white people, right? White people would be more. They're more inclined to diagnose a white person with, depression and anxiety, where Black people are more inclined to be diagnosed with, some sort of behavior disorders, some sort of
Mm.
psychopathy, or some sort of, maybe even personality disorder, or psychic,
Mm.
psychic, a disorder
Psychiatric.
with a disorder with psychopathology, with when you're hearing voices, or
Okay.
of that nature. So yeah,
So
those disparities are real.
is that a white supremacist racial bias, as well as is that the question? I'm trying to frame it in the right way. Is
Mhm.
it more of a bias? Is it more biased than actual facts?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. And so, and that's the thing, we try to, I guess, kind of put psychology forward as being this, neutral science that applies to all people. And culture runs through everything. We can't delude ourselves into thinking that this science of psychology has been sterilized and is now applicable to all people. The science of psychology is produced mainly in with white people in mind,
Mm.
and um, it is used with Black people, but there's a lot of disparities there because we're not often included and considered when studies are done, when testing happens, and so forth and so on. And so we cannot escape culture, right? We can't escape the ideologies that culture holds when it comes to the psychology. So, yes, that whiteness and white supremacy ideologies and racism is inherent. In I think it was 2021,
Mm.
um, the APA, actually both the American Psychological Association and the American Medical Association as well. The both psychiatric. I'm sorry, the American Psychological and American Psychiatric associations both came out with apologies to Black people, and that's something that it's on the
Wow.
internet. You can look at it. It's something to read. They admit to producing racist science. They admit to it, and they admit to the fact that that racist science continues to be produced today, right? They admit to a lot of historical harms that they've done against Black people. And yet, and still, the harms continue, right? When the mandate came down for disbanding DEI, the association, the American Psychological Association responded immediately. They took all DEI criteria out of their standards for educational institutions. They were no longer going to reinforce that these educational institutions upheld these
DEI.
standards. Yes, of DEI, right? And so I'm just saying that that's very recent, right? It comes right up until today that the harms just continue, no matter what the lip service has been, right? Oh yeah, we're so sorry we harmed you. Oh yeah, we continue to harm you, and we're so sorry. And then that, right? It's really it's perfunctory. And so that is so important for us to recognize. Going back to the point about us having kind of a healthy um, awareness of why we're not running to mental health services. You know,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
keep our eye on the context.
Yes, ma'am. No, and I apologize if I was looking down because I'm actually going to read something and I want you to
Sure.
respond to it. Yes, ma'am. But it ties right into your point. And what's going on, family? This is your brother King Cam. This is another powerful episode here, shifting the culture, and we have a powerful guest joining us, which is Dr. Monique Muhammad, who is the president of the Association of Black Psychologists, and we are having a powerful discussion because the trauma that black people have gone through over these 400 years is the root cause of the product that you see in 2025 and in years beyond. And that root and because of that root has caused branch damage, and that branch damage is what has been politicized as the crux and the basis for policy, the crux and the basis for initiatives to come into low income or underserved communities is the terminology that they use to classify black communities and things of that nature. And it makes me think about the 1994 crime bill. It makes me think about the remarks that Hillary Clinton made in reference to young black men. The minister said in 1989 in his announcement that there was a war against black people, but specifically black youth. It was a war specifically against black youth. Now I want to bring up the comments that Hillary Clinton made back in the 90s in reference to the black youth. And she said this, I'm quoting this from, this is out of Dr. Wesley's book, Understanding the Assault on the Black Man, Black Manhood, and Black Masculinity. But we're going to get the remarks from Hillary Clinton out of the Washington Post. Okay, so this says, we also have to be organized. We also have to have an organized effort against gangs, just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids who are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. These are the comments of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, obviously the former First Lady as well. And she alluded to it in this. She said, we can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. So from your standpoint, Dr. Muhammad, these initiatives being brought forth and being politicized the way that Hillary Clinton did ultimately to get the 1994 crime bill passed, right? And really more so of convincing the public that it needed to be passed. Because you had Democrats, you had black mothers that were championing this bill to be passed as well because of the crime that was in the community. So how are you able to view Uh, how are you able to view this in the context from a psychological standpoint?
It's manipulation. It's a manipulation of our mindsets. It is capitalizing on the self hatred that has been instilled in us
Hmm.
across centuries. It is an engineering, right, of conditions that allow them to attack. I mean, when I'm listening to the words that you just read of Hillary Clinton, it's a dog whistle. That's how it comes across to me. That it is it's language that it is meant for certain people to hear that it's time now to take certain actions, right? So I'm going to put this label. They are super predators, right? They're not
Right.
children. Right? We're going to categorize them and characterize them in a certain way that takes them out of their humanity. And once you take someone out of their humanity, you can enslave them, you can hang them on trees, you can make them the permanent underclass of your society, keep your foot on their neck, you can over police them, you can do anything you want to do with them once you have dehumanized them. And
Dehumanized.
so that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, when you started off and talking about the trauma, and that and you beautifully summarize how the trauma is kind of a root cause, and then it has branched off into other issues and conditions that we see in our community. And one of the things that I want to be really clear about,
Yes, ma'am.
that I'm often really careful about, is recognizing and helping people to recognize that the trauma that we have experienced is not the pathology,
Mm.
right? The trauma is not the pathology. The pathology is inside of the systems that we are under that create the trauma, right? There's has been a conversation um, in the field of mental health about, well, this is trauma is real, racial trauma is real, and
Hmm.
it should be included in the DSM, which is the diagnostic statistical manual of, the diagnoses that psychologists and therapists that we use. And while I understand it on one hand, that we want the pain to be recognized and to be named and to be labeled, right? There's some value in that. The danger in that to me is that when we now put a label on it and stick it in the DSM, now we say that this is an illness, right? This is a problem. And
Mm.
so there's just yet another label that's put on us that says that we are ill, that says that further pathologizes Black people. And so when we're talking about the trauma, I'm always emphasizing that the pathology is not in the condition of trauma. The pathology is what created the trauma,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's where the pathology lies. Um, and so this is more of that. What you were just reading from Hillary Clinton, that creates trauma, right? That dog whistle justifies, uh, stop and frisk.
Right. There
It
you go. Yes, ma'am.
justifies windows.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
justifies, all of these, well, they were resisting. It justifies, this all the justifiable homicide because, they're animals anyway. And
Right. Right.
so that's what I hear. When I hear that, I'm hearing a, a sick people trying to continue to perpetuate the subjugation of Black people. That's what I'm hearing.
Mm. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's heavy. That's heavy because, again, the conditions that our people have that our people are in are not conditions we placed ourselves in. And
Absolutely.
like you stated earlier, those conditions have been created, have been manufactured. We've been socially engineered, and then there's a behavior that comes from that. Behavior is influenced by not only the things that you internalize and are exposed to, uh, through culture, which is language, food, different things like that. But you also have environmental. You have environmental. I can't think of the term right now, but you have things in the environment that help promote behavior as well.
Absolutely.
And when you create an environment that's filled with crime, drugs, violence, then what do you expect the behavior to be of the people that are constantly in that type of environment? So, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I'm just jumping in that. Oh, and that, this white man there's nothing that he hasn't studied. There's nothing that he has not studied. And so he knows the consequence of putting hundreds of people in a building, the projects I'm referring to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a project, right? He knows what the outcome and the cause, the consequence of that is going to be. He knows the conditions, right, that is going to create. He studied that. So,
Yes.
none of this is unknown. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you good. You good. No, and then I want to read this as well because I don't know if many people are aware, but actually Hillary Clinton actually did not invent the term super predators. She nationalized it, if you will, but she actually didn't invent the term. It's Hillary Clinton did not invent the term super predator. Rather, she learned it and its meaning from the term's actual coiner, right-wing political scientist John DeLillo from, at the time, Princeton University. And Professor DeLillo was clear and bold. Young black males, even pre-puberty elementary school black boys, have become a demographic crime bomb about to explode on all of America if they are not brought to heel. In 2 articles, DeLillo laid out the looming threat to America, how this new breed of youth predator is fatherless, godless, and jobless, and thus can kill or maim on impulse without any intelligible motive. These super crime-prone young males, mainly black, mean big trouble ahead for America. The number of young black criminals is, he claimed, likely to surge, but also the black crime rate, both black on black and black on white, is increasing, so that as many as half of these super predators can be young black males. DeLillo theorized that nothing affects crime rates more than the number of young males in the population. So in order to avoid the predicted tsunami of merciless crime on the streets of America, reduce the number of young males in the population. Simple math. So this is the mindset of the enemy that we're dealing with as it pertains to us here in America. And I want to have this conversation because oftentimes what our people do in this community, in our community, Dr. Muhammad, is they say, well, they got they got crime in all communities. They got all types of people that, in all different races. So, it's not a black thing, it's not a white thing. But I would have to push back because I would say that black people have an enemy that have created the circumstances that would develop people into a life of crime. They have taken away the resources, taken away the opportunities that would allow you to be productive members of society, but would lean more towards crime. They have created and developed what they coined as a super predator.
That's right.
And these type of things have to be understood if we're ever going to get to a resolution.
Yes,
because if we don't know how we got to this particular area right now, then how are we going to ever get to a solution? And what I see a lot of the times in the social services program and mental health services and government programs is they want to put a Band-Aid on the branch problem. They like you mentioned in the DSM, they have a list of diagnoses that they want to give to black people at a higher rate than they would give to white people. And then they're going to give us those diagnoses, and then in these programs, they bring you in these programs that only treat the diagnosis that they gave you. But it's not going to the root of how people got to that point from the beginning. Yeah. So to that, in your studies, have you seen psychologists working towards solutions that will get to the root of the problem? Is that an initiative that you are taking up on your own, or could you give us some feedback, insight into that?
Yes. Again, I want to point to the Association of Black Psychologists.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why I feel committed to this organization because of what they're giving, offering to our people. Absolutely bringing us back to the root, right? In the Association of Black Psychologists, we understand that you cannot paint white psychology with a black face and give it to black
Mm,
people and expect it to be our cure. It's not. It's not. And so what we have done is reoriented psychology around who and what we are organically, right? As the original people of the planet Earth,
yes, ma'am.
our original way of being. This is what the Association of Black Psychologists is offering us, recognizing that our culture, our ways of being, our inter relationships with each other, how we think, they're different from how white people think.
Right,
So,
right.
for example, um, uh, one of our founders, brilliant brother by the name of Dr. Edwin Nichols, he offers us what he calls the philosophical differences of culture, right? Where he
Okay.
looks at the differences between cultures. And if you look at, he looks at four uh, domains of culture, but I'm just going to talk about white and black right now. I'm talking about European and African cultures. So
Yes,
if you
ma'am.
look at just these two and you recognize that for white people, what he calls the axiology or the way we apply value, right, to people in society. For Europeans, it's a member object relationship, right? So the person that has the most objects, right, gets the more respect, right? So the cars you drive, the house you live
Okay.
in, right? This is not surprising, right? But
Materialism.
objects are right, materialism, yes. And that, but objects are not just materials, right? Objects are also ideas, right? And
Okay.
so the person that has the quote unquote best idea, right? We still talk about Einstein today as being the smartest and being the S, right? And we always look with the first, right?
Right.
These are objects from this perspective. And so the person that has the most objects, the most expensive objects, the most unique objects, the best objects, that's the person that gets the most respect, right?
Mm,
Black people don't, we don't vibrate like that in the
right.
world, right? From our original way of being, our axiology is a member to member axiology, right?
Mm,
So we assign value based upon our relationship with each other.
mm.
And so, for example, we still see some retentions of this in present day interactions. I don't know if you found this to be true, Brother King Cam, but I know when I encounter other Black people that I don't know, haven't, I'm
Have
meeting you for the first time,
right. Yes, ma'am.
often it's not uncommon where a dialogue will end up ensuing around trying to figure out how we connected or if we're connected in some kind of way. So it might be, so where are your people from again? So wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, you
Mm-hmm.
from Jersey?
Yeah.
Wait, do you know this people or that people?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or are you related to this people or that people? We
Right.
tend to go there, and that's a part of a retention of who and what we are, because for us, when I find a point of connection between you, what, you in the Nation of Islam too? Now
Mm.
that increases the value of that connection, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
where the value is for us. We don't put the value. Now we've gotten a lot of their ways in us in being here, swimming in the waters of whiteness for
Right.
centuries. I'm not going to deny that that's true, but who we are, if the essence of how we came in this world, that's not how we operated, right? We're a very, our logic system was another thing that he examined, looked at, and he said from the Europeans' perspective, it's always an either or. It's either
Mm.
me or you, right? You're gonna have it or I'm gonna have it. That's what
That's
they
true.
look at it as a very it's always a no sum game for them,
Right.
right? So
Yes, ma'am.
if you win, then that means I lose. So I got to stop you from winning. I got to stop you from getting it, right? So it creates that kind of dynamic. Whereas from an African centered perspective, it's diunital. It's not me or you, right? It's not it's a both and. It's me and you. So often you'll find the way our psychology or our philosophy of life, it's always a both and, the seen and the unseen,
Mm.
right? The male and the female, there's complementarity, right? The first and the last, that ties together. It's always a both and with us. It's not a one or the
The
other,
other. Right.
right? And so I'm just using these examples as a way to help us kind of understand that when you recognize that the essence of someone is not, it is, it's not that European way of being. When I connect and I speak to you, I connect with you from a way that is organic to us, something powerful happens, right? And that's what I bring into my therapy sessions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That recognition. And be able to, it helps me to be able to first see the person that I'm working with, right, in a better light. And then also, it helps me to be able to connect and help them to see themselves and bring them into a better place within their own, whatever issue that they're dealing with.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, yeah.
So, and that also, that to the point that you brought up, that also is another way that we kind of measure or legitimize who we're dealing with, kind of measure them, trust them, all of that type of stuff. Because when you first meeting somebody, you don't know them, so you get into that line of questioning, like, okay, where your people from? You from here, or what street you grew up on? You get into that thing, and then once you get into that conversation and you find that level of commonality, when you find the level of commonality, then you say, okay, now you can say, okay, I can rock with this person. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Now it's another level of trust, because they from where I'm from, or they know the same people that I know, or they may be related to me in some type of way, or something like
Mhm.
that. So that level of commonality helps to bring the guard down, right? And
Yeah,
it helps
yeah,
us now to start to cultivate the relationship, because you're absolutely right. Everything that we do is based on relationships.
yes.
Everything that we do is not based on what you can do for me or what I
Mhm.
can gain from the situation. It is, what's the relationship? Oh,
Right.
such and such. Okay, I'm gonna take care of you. You see what I'm saying? Like that's
Mhm.
that's how we operate.
Mhm. Mhm.
Versus the Caucasian, as you mentioned, they have a totally different mentality. So that's
Right.
why.
Where do you live? They want to know where you live because they want to know how much your house costs. Oh, and what
Hmm.
degrees do you have? Right?
Right.
What do you do for a living? Right?
Hmm.
That tends to be the conversation
Right.
with Europeans.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes me wonder how people can get the idea or the impression that we are all the same, because they say, well, we're just human beings, right? We're all human beings. So there's no difference between any of us. We're all from God, and there is no distinction between any of us. When clearly, that is not the case.
Yes,
And
clearly.
it goes to why we have had so much trouble in America, because America wants to pride itself on being a a boiling pot of mixed cultures, and just a melting pot of different cultures, of diversity and things of this nature. However, what that has caused and created is conflict and friction among two people who are polar opposites, right?
Hmm.
So I say all that to say, when it comes to treating our people and working with our people, you mentioned it earlier. If you're going to When you go into therapy, you need to have a black therapist. In the teachings, the minister and the messenger emphasize the importance of us teaching our own, and that is important because, again, that cultural commonplace that we have among each other helps us to deal with young black boys who get out of line in class. They don't become scary to the European teacher because he got an attitude, and now you scared because he got an attitude.
Right.
Or the different things that our children do are familiar to us because we grew up the same way and we got children that act just like them. Versus, the difference. So how important do you see the need and necessity for there to be really a separation of the two peoples when it comes to that education and to that cultivation? How important is that for the success of us as a people? Or is there a solution that lies in the integrated way of life that America has promoted thus far?
I think we have tried the integrated way, and if we don't know by now that that doesn't work, I don't know that we'll ever know that it doesn't work. We've tried to be friends. We've tried to sit next to them on the bus, live next to them in our homes, eat next to them at lunch counters, try to work with them. I mean, have tried everything to appeal to their consciousness, of the governing political people in this society. And I think they have shown us time and time again that the only place that they have for us within their society, if any place at all, is underneath their foot.
Mm.
That's so clear to me. And I don't know why it's not clear to all of us.
It's all
Grandbaby.
look. That's how. But look, this goes to what you were saying. Our commonplace, our commonalities. We know how this goes. Yes, man. We know how this goes. So we ain't tripping on that.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, I think, to be honest, I think we are at a point, we can thank Trump for it as well, that people are beginning to recognize that we will do better when we are on our own. We
Absolutely.
can look at all of the Tulsas, and there are many of them, right?
Hmm.
We hear of Tulsa, Oklahoma, singularly, but there were so many
Absolutely.
communities that were all Black, that were thriving, that were, people who had comfort, money, systems. They were
Yes.
governing their own communities. There were so many, but majority of them, and I might want to even say all, I don't, because none
Hmm.
exist today, were ravaged by angry white people who did not like the success that we had, did not want us to have that. And so, if we're constantly under this type of mindset, how will we ever get ahead? When will we stop trying to appeal to the consciousness of white people to say, don't you see that I'm human? Don't you see that I hurt? Can you please be nice to me? When are we going to stand up and just do for ourselves? And honestly, I think, and I've heard our minister say as well, white people would probably respect us a heck of a lot more if we stood up and just did for ourselves and equal ourselves. Not that he's a standard to be equal to, but equal ourselves
Right.
up with them. But um, yeah, this I do feel in conversations, and we're just in some conversations yesterday, that people are coming around to that recognition and that realization that this thing is not working, that we need a new way. And to be honest, it's not just Black people who are realizing this, white people are realizing it too. There are a lot of white people that are like, yo, this is some craziness. I love this country. I'm loyal to this country, but I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm doing. And this is not, doesn't represent who I am. So white people too, not for nothing, they're waking up and they're making noise. I want to say that though, and put this with it. And in some of the presentations that I do, I use this sculpture that was done by two Danish sculptors. It's called "The Survival of the Fattest." That's the title um, of this particular sculpture. but there's a caption that reads, okay, well, let me just describe it first. It's a big fat white woman on the
Mhm.
back of a skinny, starving looking African man,
Mm.
right? And the caption reads, I'm sitting on the back of a man. He is sinking from the burden. I would do anything to help him except step off of his back.
Mm.
And I put that out to help white people to recognize the mentality that they have been leading with, and to recognize that if you truly want to be an ally, if you truly don't like and you think it's unjust what you're seeing, then it's going to cause you some discomfort. You cannot sit in a place of privilege and do this work, right? You're going to have to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to come down in the trenches. And, white people have voice and access and so forth that Black people just don't have in this country. Use that. Use your voice, use your access, right? To help to make change. Because, you can't just sit in a place of comfort and condemn what you're seeing and then that be it. And you consider yourself an ally.
Yes, ma'am. And I think people like yourself and others are, and the Association of Black Psychologists in general, is in a very important position to help educate not only Black people, but also to help educate white people.
Absolutely.
Because they have to be educated on this as well. Those who are sincere about change, they have to be
Hmm.
educated on this as well. And I
Yes, sir.
think that's very important that that's being done because, as you mentioned, you can't sit from a position of privilege and condemn, but don't understand the uh, the root cause of what you're seeing, right?
Yes.
And the variances and the nuance that exist in the psyche of Black people versus other cultures, and other people, because it's
Hmm.
vastly different. And this is why the work of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says a message to the Black man that he's dealing with the American so-called Negro first, because we are a special people with special circumstances. And because we've endured a specific and special type of enslavement, then it requires that there be a specific type of work done among us first, and then it spreads out to the broader
Hmm.
community. So
Yeah.
now that aspect has taken place, now we're in the aspect of spreading to the broader community through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, his World Friendship Tours, and all of these other and the other endeavors that the minister has done that has reached beyond just the Black community, but has reached the international scale. People
Hmm.
have to leave the ego at the door and
Yes, sir.
come willing and ready to learn what has happened to us. And through learning what happened to us and the solutions that happened to us will be a cure for America. I want to get your thoughts on this before we get ready to get out of here. You see a
Yes, sir.
lot of the celebrities and the different things that they have gone through. And, like R. Kelly and Diddy, the most recent example. They just actually sentenced him, I believe, to 50 something months, which is like 4 years, uh,
Hmm.
in his case, and they wasn't able to find him guilty of the RICO, but they did find him guilty of the Mann Act. So, looking at that, and even in this as well, with I don't know if you're familiar with or heard about the argument that was back and forth with Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. They was going back and forth online and everything like that. I wanted to get your thoughts from a psychologist standpoint. When you see our people, you know, doing these different type of things, what are some of the thoughts that go through your mind when you see a Diddy in a case and you hear some of the things that took place, or you hear what happened with R. Kelly? What are some of the things, the thoughts that go through your mind as to the real cause? Because they're gonna criminalize it, right? And there
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
obviously they have to be accountable for their actions. But I'm talking about root cause. What are
Yes.
some of
Yes.
the thoughts that go through your mind?
Yes, sir. I mean, I think it's the same thing that we've been saying all along. You know, we can look at a Diddy or R. Kelly and say, "Oh, shame on you! You did whatever it was that you did." But when you go back, right, you trail it back a bit more, unpeel that onion some more, you begin to recognize that these are people who have been hurt and harmed themselves, right? And there's a saying that hurt people
Hurt
hurt
people.
people.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And so I think what we're looking at is a bunch of hurt people who are hurting people, people who have laid down. I mean, you look Diddy and R. Kelly, they have literally laid down in the slop trough of this country. The social um, like norms of this country, they have
Mm,
seen the worst of it. And when I say the
right.
worst of it, I'm talking about the sickness, the way what money does, what
Right.
sex does, what having access and the privilege of notoriety does.
Mm,
It doesn't make you more often than not, it doesn't make you a better person.
wow.
It opens you up to the sicknesses,
Mm,
right? You know, the pathological sexual dealings that they have on the level that they have been operating with, right? You know, we
yes.
understand one of the things that white people did not do was allow us into their social equality. But
Right.
they're letting us into their social equality now because as we are in their social equality, we're becoming depraved, just as depraved and sick. The debauchery that we are engaging in is not is not it is harming us. It
Right.
is harming us. And so in many ways we're just going right along with what they're doing. But again, you know, I didn't really follow Diddy, to be quite honest,
Okay.
but I did, you know, engage a little bit with R. Kelly. But R. Kelly had a lot of trauma in his history,
Yes, ma'am.
right? I would imagine the same is true for Diddy. You don't do the things that supposedly these people have done and haven't had, you know, when you had a supportive, loving, you know, nucleus of people and an environment that you grow up with, and then you end up doing something like that. No, typically, these are people that have experienced some pretty severe issues, some pretty severe trauma in their lives that have opened them up to doing some of the things that they've done. So when we're talking about root, right, I would go back even further than their childhood, though. When we're
Mm,
talking about root, I have to now begin to look at and interrogate the society within which they have been groomed and they have grown up, right? The condition of the people that they belong to. Now we're going back again and looking at the system, right? Systemic racism is so, it just obliterates our sensibility of who we are, and those of us that get through, that have some semblance of self-knowledge, that have some semblance of self-love, that have some semblance of love for you know, my brother and sister. We met something like an honorable minister Louis Farrakhan, right?
that's right.
We've encountered something. We understand we're connected with God. There's something has happened for those of us that are able to ground ourselves in the positive healing. But many people like the R. Kellys, like the, you know, and there's so many more. I hate to keep just mentioning those, but there's so many more that have just been swimming in the waters of trauma, of systemic racism, of self-hatred, of you know, we could just kind of go on and on and on. And this is what happens. That's the outcome. That's the end result of it. So
Yes, ma'am.
we get what we get in that
Right.
condition.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to shout out some of the people in the comment section. Brother Nathan, brother Nathan Field said that integration was the biggest mistake. He said integration was the biggest mistake. We would definitely agree with that, brother Nathan, because we have seen a lot of nothing but problems since
Yes.
integration. And we got my good sister Intellalex in here, sister Alexis. She said this is a good conversation. Speak, Queen. Yes, ma'am. So she works in the she works in the mental health space as well, social services. as a social
Yes.
worker. So I knew
Okay.
she would enjoy this conversation. And then,
Yeah.
Brother Nathan, following up, understanding that the reason why the European kept us out of his social equality because they are filthy in all their affairs. Come on, brother. You already
Yeah.
know it. You know it. You know it. So yes, ma'am. So, I want to go ahead because we could do this all day. So I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep you so much longer. But it makes me think about you know the consistent work, the consistent, and I say consistent because it's not a one time thing. There has
Hmm.
to be hubs and think tanks and committees and groups that are committed to attacking this on a weekly basis. You
Yeah.
see where our psychology is affected in our ability to develop proper conflict resolution, right?
Mm.
You see where our psychology is affected and affects our ability to have healthy and toxic relationships, our communication. The way that communication is a two-person thing, right? It's not just one person speaking at another person, but the person that's not speaking is supposed to be actively listening. Well,
Mm.
listening is an actual skill. It's different from hearing. Oftentimes in our conversations, people hear you, but they're not listening, right? So our ability to be able to communicate effectively has been damaged through the trauma, right? And so, I think, people like yourself should have these platforms to help speak to the masses of our people so that they can get an understanding. Because Dr. Muhammad, I know when I see and listen to mainstream media and they have these correspondents on there that supposed to speak to the issues, but they give you nothing but fluff. They give you
Mm.
nothing but a band-aid. They give you nothing but
Mhm.
political, whether it be liberal or even right-wing conservative talking points that do nothing
Mm.
for the 85%, the masses of the people, but speak to everything that the 10% is concerned about,
Mhm.
and it becomes frustrating. So much so that most of our people just tuck ourselves away into the rat race of,
Yeah.
going to work, making money, paying the bills, taking care of the children, and trying to have, somewhat of what we have created in our minds of a successful, productive life, right? Um, and to that, it's like, there has to be something that's done. So, I thank you for your time today. I thank you for coming and just sharing your perspective. Could you let the people know some upcoming work that you may have coming up in the city of New Jersey, and then also where people can find you on social media, where they can stay in contact with you and different services that you offer and things of that nature.
Well, I my website is Swift Solutions, swiftsolutionsconsultant.com. And so if you want to contact me, we can contact me through that. I quite honestly don't, I'm not big on social media, not with professionally, right? I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Monique Swift. And in terms of things that are coming up, I would just say stay tuned in terms
Mhm.
of in regard to the work of the Association of Black Psychologists. We are always, making efforts toward building in our community, and uh, providing services, providing education that is going to be beneficial to us. So we do Salborna healing circles, and given all of the trauma that's happening right now with ICE, that
Yes.
is not just our Latino brothers and sisters, but now, of course, we're seeing in the city of Chicago that they're targeting uh, US born Black people. And so
Yep.
there's a lot of trauma. And so our Salborna Healing Circles are a Black only space that is created to help us to come together and heal together, because we do believe and understand that we are each other's medicine. We are each other's medicine. And so um, we heal in community with one another. That is, it's been our strength, and we have to really lean in and lean on that as our strength today to be able to transcend the attack that we are truly under attack. And but we will, there's an African proverb that I love. It says, if you want to know the end, look at the beginning. We know where we began. That will be the end. So I'll close it there. Thank you so much, Brother King Cam. Thank you for the conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much again for joining us. And we're gonna have to definitely bring you back for a part 2, so that we can just deal. Yes, ma'am. So we can just deal with the male and female relationships, because that's a hot topic. Everybody and their mama got a podcast about relationships and all of that type of stuff, and what the woman should be doing, what they looking for, what men should be doing, what they looking for, all that kind of stuff. So definitely want to get you back so that we can have that conversation as well.
I would love that.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you so much again for your time, and we look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you so much again. You have a blessed day.
Yes, ma'am. You as well. All right, family. So listen, again, that was Sister Dr. Monique Muhammad. And, man, you can follow up with her via her website at SwiftSolutionsConsultant.com to get in contact with her. But I think I'm going to just talk to her about maybe being like a weekly contributor, and, having her thoughts on a lot of things that happen in our community to help bring our awareness up. Because oftentimes I don't think we really take into consideration all of the things that are in our minds that are reflective in our behavior, right? And we just think people act that way because they act that way. That's not the case. You have been socially engineered, as we talked about. You've been shaped and molded. You have been, you have been trained to think the way that you think and to act the way that you act. And in understanding that, we'll be able to get a better solution for our people. So again, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Shout out to the faithfuls, man. Brother Nathan, always tuning in, man. Brother Lee with Logic. Shout out to Sister Alexia for coming through. I knew she would enjoy this conversation as well. And thank you again, family. Look forward to seeing you and speaking with you again. Peace and blessings. Now, why can't I hit the little button now, right now? All right, y'all, we go.
Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you. They gave leadership to our foreparents, and that leadership made them slaves. But we have decided to find a leadership of our own.
Not your average nigga, I'm a god out the hood. They can't downplay me, I came up, I'm elevated. I ain't gotta say too much for them to know I'm coming for what's mine. They see me in my presence, say they see how I'm coming. Young, but you not just gonna finesse me like you did my peoples. Then back when you said they was emancipated. This ain't that. Your head too big, you feeling yourself. The game wasn't fair, you had the advantage, we wasn't educated. I don't look at you people the same. Nah. Your worst nightmare, my skin tone about them chains. Yeah. Not no circus lion, son, I can't be tamed. You gon' have to kill me, pussy, Toby ain't my name. Y'all still want us think our history started when we were slaves? What? Come on now, talk about them pyramids we made. I was chosen by that man, y'all just been running game. The nerve of you